Introduction: The Sky Before the Storm. In the early years of the Second World War, air power decided everything. Whichever nation controlled the sky controlled the battlefield below. Cities survived or burned. Armies advanced or collapsed. By 1942, Germany believed it had mastered the air. The Luftwaffe ruled Europe from above, confident in its pilots, tactics, and machines. They climbed higher, struck faster, and vanished before their enemies could respond. To them, American aircraft were crude, slow, and inexperienced. And then, the Americans introduced something different, something massive, something brutal, something that looked completely wrong. The P-47 Thunderbolt. The German advantage. German fighter pilots entered combat with confidence bordering on arrogance. They had experience, they had altitude, they had speed. Their aircraft were light and agile, designed for sharp turns and quick kills. Their tactics were precise: attack from above, fire once, disengage. American fighters often never saw them coming. To the Luftwaffe, the sky was a hunting ground, and the enemy below was prey. When German pilots first saw the P-47, they laughed. It was enormous, heavier than anything they had faced before, a flying brute that seemed better suited for transport than combat. They assumed it would fall easily. They were wrong. The American dilemma. The P-47 Thunderbolt was not born elegant. It was born from fear. American engineers knew they were facing the most experienced Air Force in the world. They needed a fighter that could survive punishment and still fight back. The result was extreme. A massive radial engine, heavy armor plating, self-sealing fuel tanks, 8.50 caliber machine guns. Pilots struggled during early training. The aircraft climbed slowly. It felt heavy on the controls. Landing accidents were common. Many pilots believed the Thunderbolt was a mistake, but its creators had a different vision. They were not building a duelist, they were building a survivor. A different kind of fighter. Unlike lighter fighters, the P-47 was designed around its engine. The Pratt & Whitney radial engine was enormous, powerful, and incredibly durable. It could take damage and keep running. The fuselage was thick, the wings were strong. The structure could absorb punishment that would destroy other aircraft. This was not an aircraft meant to dance. It was meant to endure. And slowly, pilots began to understand its true strength. The discovery of speed. At altitude, something unexpected happened. When the P-47 dove, it didn't slow down. It accelerated. Faster than enemy fighters, faster than pilots thought possible. The Thunderbolt could dive deeper and faster than anything in the sky and survive the stress. Enemy fighters tried to follow. Many never recovered. Wings snapped. Engines failed. Control was lost. The Thunderbolt always pulled out. And in that moment, American pilots realized something crucial. This aircraft didn't need to turn. It needed to strike. Boom and zoom. The tactic was simple. Climb high, wait, dive with overwhelming speed, fire once, climb back to safety. Boom and zoom. German pilots who once attacked from above were now being attacked from the same direction. They never heard the Thunderbolt coming. 8 machine guns fired simultaneously, tearing through aircraft in seconds. A single pass was enough. The Thunderbolt did not chase kills. It delivered them. The first shock. The Luftwaffe was confused. Their tactics were failing. Their pilots were dying. Aircraft that should have fallen apart kept flying. Thunderbolts returned to base riddled with holes, damaged engines, and shattered control surfaces, but their pilots were alive. German pilots reported something unsettling. The American fighter does not die. Taking control of altitude. Air superiority depends on altitude. Whoever holds the high ground controls the fight. Slowly, Thunderbolts began climbing higher and higher. using turbochargers to maintain power where others lost it. They didn't dominate with agility, they dominated with position. German pilots found themselves constantly looking up. That alone changed the war. Escorting the bombers. American bombers were vulnerable. Without protection, they were slaughtered. The Thunderbolt changed that. With its range extended by drop tanks, it could escort bombers deep into enemy territory. German fighters attacked and met a wall of fire. The Thunderbolt didn't just defend bombers, it punished attackers. The airframe that refused to fail. Pilots told stories that sounded impossible. Aircraft returning with half a wing missing, engines shot full of holes, cockpits damaged by cannon fire, and still they flew home. The Thunderbolt earned a reputation not just as a fighter, but as a life-saving machine. If you were hit, you wanted to be in a P-47. Transformation into a ground attack giant. As the war progressed, a new role emerged. The Thunderbolt carried bombs, then rockets, then more ammunition. It became a flying tank. Railways were destroyed, bridges collapsed, convoys burned. The aircraft flew low, absorbing ground fire and returning again and again. Nothing on the ground could stop it. Terror from above. German troops learned to recognize the sound. A deep, roaring engine. Then the dive. Then destruction. The Thunderbolt didn't just destroy targets, it destroyed morale. Crushing supply lines. Wars are not won by battles alone, they are won by logistics. The P-47 targeted trains, fuel depots, airfields, and transport routes. German forces ran out of fuel, aircraft were destroyed before takeoff, supplies never arrived. The war machine began to stall. The Pacific experience. In the Pacific, the Thunderbolt faced a different enemy. Japanese fighters were lighter and more maneuverable, but the strategy remained the same. Dive, strike, climb. The results were devastating. The Thunderbolt proved adaptable, a machine that could dominate anywhere. Against the jet age. Germany introduced jet fighters faster than anything before, but jets had weaknesses. They were vulnerable during takeoff and landing. Thunderbolts waited, and when the moment came, they attacked. Even the future could be destroyed by brute force. Mass production and scale. By the end of the war, more than 15,000 Thunderbolts had been built. Factories worked around the clock. The aircraft became a symbol of American industrial power. Not perfect, but unstoppable. Pilot testimonies. Pilots trusted the Thunderbolt. They knew it would bring them home. Many said the same thing. You didn't fly the P-47, you survived in it. The war's end. As the war ended, Thunderbolts flew final missions. The skies were quieter, the enemy was exhausted, and the Thunderbolt had proven its worth. Legacy. The P-47 Thunderbolt was never beautiful. It was never gentle, but it was honest. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It fought, it endured, and it brought pilots home. Final words. History remembers elegance, but war remembers effectiveness. And in the skies of World War II, nothing was more effective than the Thunderbolt. A flying fortress, a hammer of steel, a machine that refused to die.
They are won by endurance. And the P-47 Thunderbolt was the embodiment of endurance. It was not designed to impress pilots on the first flight. It was not built to win air shows or inspire poetry. It was built to survive a world where survival itself had become a weapon. When the Thunderbolt entered combat, it was mocked. German pilots laughed at its size. British pilots doubted its purpose. Even American pilots questioned its future. But war has a way of stripping away illusion. It reveals what works and what does not. And slowly, relentlessly, the Thunderbolt proved itself. Not through grace, not through finesse, but through overwhelming reality. It could absorb damage that should have been fatal, It could dive faster than fear itself. It could deliver firepower so dense that enemy aircraft ceased to exist rather than fall. The Thunderbolt did not chase glory. It chased objectives. Bombers needed protection. It provided it. Armies needed air cover. It owned the sky. Enemy supply lines needed destruction. It erased them. Wherever the Thunderbolt appeared, the rules changed. German pilots learned that experience alone was no longer enough. Skill could not compensate for an enemy that could outclimb, outdive, outlast, and outgun them. Courage could not overcome an aircraft that refused to die. By the war's final years, the laughter was gone. In its place was hesitation, fear, resignation. The sound of a Thunderbolt's engine became a warning, not of a fight, but of destruction. For the pilots who flew it, the P-47 was more than a machine. It was armor. It was confidence. It was the difference between a burning wreck and a runway at home. For the enemy, it was something else entirely. It was inevitability. The Thunderbolt represented a truth Germany could not escape. This was no longer a war of tactics alone. It was a war of industry, resources, and scale. And in that kind of war, America did not build the best fighter for Europe. It built the best fighter for victory. Over 15,000 Thunderbolts filled the skies of 2 continents, each one a statement of industrial power, each one backed by fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and trained pilots. Germany could not match that. No nation could. By the time the war ended, the Luftwaffe was shattered, not just by losses, but by exhaustion. Pilots were gone. Fuel was gone. Hope was gone. The Thunderbolt did not win the war alone, but it ensured the sky belonged to those who would. Today, restored P-47s sit silently in museums. Their paint is clean, their engines are cold, their guns are empty. But once, they were thunder. Once, they rewrote what a fighter could be. They proved that survivability could be deadlier than agility, that firepower could outweigh finesse, that mass production could overpower mastery. The P-47 Thunderbolt did not just defeat enemy aircraft, it defeated an entire philosophy of air combat. And when the skies finally fell silent in 1945, one truth was undeniable. The era of fragile fighters was over. The age of brute force aviation had arrived. The Thunderbolt had spoken, and the sky would never be the same again.